The caveat is that they're all connected. So shadows kind
Yeah.
of feed from one another in the end, and the gifts feed from one another. It's almost like you tap into the shadow, you turn them all on across the board, and it
Yeah.
depends. No matter what key you have your shadow in.
People like you that are enabling great change for others, and just your presence and just your being. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a celebrity to do it either. You can just be walking down the street or sitting in a room.
And you're making the difference.
How can I contribute something? And that's a big fear too. It's like, oh, I'm going to change my city or my town or my country. Like, yeah, it's possible. It starts with one person. The eighth gene key: mediocrity, style, exquisiteness. We need not fear mediocrity as long as our heart is open and singing. We no longer need to react to it and find yourself at odds with the status quo. True style is found in the marketplace, living as an example of a true rebellious human being, unchained by external definitions and unfettered by conditioning, ancestral or cultural.
Say that again.
Oh, yeah, I said you're perfect.
No. How are you?
I am doing so good. How are
Okay.
you? Oh my goodness. Okay.
You're doing so good.
So good.
What happened? I want to know.
Well, we have this routine now. Sunday morning we go to the beach and we invite all the friends and we have a great time. The kids get to play and we get to play in the water. So.
Nice. Is there a beach you're headed to?
Yeah, Kahana.
Oh, I don't remember.
Black
Okay.
sand.
Oh, yes.
It's the one that's down here. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. You didn't get sunburned this time?
I did, but I'm in the light
Hey.
enough. You can't see it.
Okay. SPF, the sunscreen a little bit, no?
No, I
Doesn't work.
shaved it up.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm catching up. I had a little FOMO this weekend that I'm missing out because I'm behind on a lot of things that I want to do. Hold on. My dog wants to sit with us. He likes to contemplate together.
Hey.
Yeah, but good. It's raining in LA. So usually when it rains, I love to stay inside and be a hermit and read and write and do a little art and listen to the music. And yeah, so this is perfect.
Yes, lovely.
And the 9th is what you have, and the 9th is what I have as well. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Where is your 9th?
Radiance.
Radiant. Oh. Oh.
I know.
Interesting.
I'm excited.
And what line is your radiant?
I think, okay, let me see. I am 2. I am 4.
4.
And you are
6.
You are 6. I do have your chart open up too, so just like to take a look. I actually have everyone's chart open. I was like, who's this? So then I can well, everyone who I know. Not that many people give the details on, like a natal chart, birth chart stuff. Okay, cool. Let's go.
All right.
Number 8. I love how it's called. It's called a diamond of the self. I actually really, really like this one a lot. And even though I don't know yet person who has the 8, I'm yet to find the person who has an 8, so I can be called the person.
I'll have to check my kids. Maybe one of them has an 8.
Your kids?
Yeah, they might.
It's five of you in total. which is like a lot of keys to, decipher or decode. Okay, so this one is really cool because I think it speaks a lot about what I preach all the time. And even though I don't have the eighth gift, for some reason, I always find myself coming back to the heart, coming back to speak your own truth. Where is your sovereign, authentic self? Speak, 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 up, up, up. It doesn't matter. Break the rules, go through fears, risk. And it's literally what I say all the time. And I think I'm like a broken record, and I don't really know any other story that it's more empowering that breaking through mediocrity, which is the shadow in the eighth. And I think it's such a great talk. We can spend 2 hours just talking about the eighth jinky. So, okay. So I highlighted a lot, of course. And I also wrote a lot. Bam. Yes. Bam. Love this one. Yes, yes, bam. So I'll just, read the bams because bams meant something. So the eighth shadow is fear of being different. And it's a mediocrity that our humanity, a lot of people on a humanity, and this is not us saying a lot of people, rather than reading in the book, that a lot of people live their lives in the shadow of a fear of being different and not being unique to themselves. And the shadow prevents individuals from rising out of the mass consciousness and exploring the real adventure of life. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. It's, to me, the adventure, it can't be like I like to use stories. So growing up, I played video games, and back in the day, video games would have you could buy a guidebook to go with them. And the guidebook, I love the guidebook because you could open the guidebook and it would say, okay, you're standing here, you're going to walk up to this monster, you're going to look behind the thing, and you're going to find this treasure, you're going to put that, equip the sword, and then you're going to be able to fight the next person. Literally step by step by step. And I would do this. And there was a feeling of I would do it because I had this addiction to perfection or accomplishment or whatever it was. And then you wind up beating the game by following the guide. And you don't have this sense of there's no oh, I tried to explore on my own and figure it out. There's no sense inherent in that. It's very empty feeling.
So how does this relate to being mediocre rather than doing your own thing? Would doing your own thing be not reading a book or even not playing a video game?
Yeah. Just as
create one.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's essentially it's pointing to rebellion, right? So if you're following someone else's course, then you're falling prey to the shadow of being mediocre. So if the whole world is telling you don't play video games, then maybe just to play devil's advocate, which I like to do. But there's temptations on all sides, and even with spiritual leaders or thought leaders. There seems like a path at which they acquired their style, or they have attained a level of individuality, and it's oh, I can do what they did, or I'll create a podcast and do it with what they're doing, and I'll dress like them and I'll talk like them. No, that's not it.
It pisses me off. Oh my God. So, couple examples. Used to live in Vegas, and in Vegas there was this huge wave of people buying homes left and right. It was massive. Everybody was buying homes, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. And everywhere you turn around, your friends, your coworkers, everybody is on Zillow, and they're trying to find a perfect home for them. And I'm like, wait a minute, everybody's doing this. Stop. Something is off. I do this on automatic, but not for everything. I think not I don't have this key. It kind of sucks because I don't have it, but it comes naturally. But this key is connected to 60th key, which is feeding off of each other. So I have 60th key, which is like you know how they're programmed together. So I find that I'm influenced by this key a lot, even though I don't have it. So I always say, and by default, I actually stop to follow whatever that masses are doing. You have it in politics a lot. You have it in crypto industry a lot. You have it in investments when it comes to money. And you almost like people, mass is when you are so afraid, the most comfortable thing to do is to follow other people. Because now you feel comfortable and you feel safe because masses are doing it. So if masses are doing what they're doing, is like you're not gonna fail. That's not true. You're certainly going to fail. And what is sad about the being in the shadow is that deep down you really are. It's almost like the flower of your soul and heart is dying out because you're not following it.
Yeah.
And the only way that we can follow this, and we're kind of trapped to this mass consciousness of shadow, of mediocrity. We're trapped in it because we live in the system. So I usually say you're trapped by the system. System tells you what you need to do and the education you need to follow and everything that you need to become. It's telling you and feeding you all this information. But yet it's really hard to exit. So the only three categories that he's listing here as the categories that can be a little bit authentic self are what? Music and art and fashion.
Fashion, yeah.
And now it should be life, should be marriage, should be relationships, should be, you know, the speech, the new language, the everything else too. Thoughts?
Yeah. In seeing the word style here show up for the gift, there's only one person I could think of. That's you.
Really?
You just emanate style, and I think everyone would say that about you. I mean, I don't know your friends, or your group, but I think it's like, yeah, it's interesting that you don't have the key, but it's somewhere relating, it's somewhere in there for you. And yeah, it's just, with all the shadows, it's just a fear. This is one that is prevalent and easy to spot, I think, in the world. Like, who do you know that's not, living according to the masses? And
My mother.
Your mother?
Yeah. Partially. I mean, big deal. It's like, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, finish.
No, I'm curious.
This woman divorced her husband, aka my father, when nobody even talked about a divorce. And of course was alone. Of course was, so ahead of the time that everybody ridiculed her. But she, partially because of her, this is the way I am, really, because I am taught how not to think outside the box and how not to really think what I see, feel, and what is the existence of the present moment around me or environment I'm in. And fast forward now, which is what, 30, 40 years later, almost 30 years later, everybody's doing that. They're talking about the environment. It's like normal. And she always used to say, there's this saying that follows me forever in my life, hoping I will share it so it can change you. You're never a part of the horde, the animals sticking together. You're either up front, leading, or you're behind, stopping and thinking, where are they going? You're never in the middle. It's always first or the last, but you're never part of it.
So that feeling, like the feeling of being in the middle, is that feeling of safety, which you're saying is an illusion. And most everyone is in the back, trying to see where the group is heading, or the leader is going.
Yeah. This saddens me on the body level.
Yeah.
I am not ever trying to even logically explain it any longer. I feel it. And when I feel it, So all I want is just to empower you. But yet I know it's not me that needs to empower you. It's you and your timeline and your time. Whenever you're ready, you will come to the awakened moment anyway. So it's almost like I really want to show you how to, but I always have to go back and step and zip it and be like, it's all right. This is the time that we're living in, because I cannot teach you how to do it. It's unteachable, really. And I don't know, unless you reprogram your entire nervous system, which comes also with unprogramming the way you're educated, raised, and all this institutional programming that is engraved in you from the time, from the age of your kids, fast forward. And then you have to break through it. You literally have to punch through it, which connects to our ninth too.
Right.
Yeah, it says shadow, the eighth shadow of mediocrity is bred into you from an early age. And in most cases, it has to be unlearned later in life if you are to have the least chance of living out your gifts and finding your genius. Imagine. Can you imagine the world?
I was thinking about that. And I don't know if it's like fear. You know how there's like layers of consciousness, right? So like I was just thinking like if there's 8 billion people, could we all be individualistic and rebellious? Like what would the world look like? And like the devil's advocate was like there needs to be a bell curve. Like it makes sense that the majority are kind of doing their own thing because, and this is just playing out as I'm talking, like that enables the rebellion. But I imagine as we evolve collectively, the rebellion in a universal sense could be possible and still have like a functioning society. It would be like hyper functioning because it would just be everyone would be in alignment with the universal track.
So you're saying we have to have this shadow.
That was like this kind of like trying to identify it as like, is that just a fear that's making me then feel complacent? Like it's okay that the world is that way. And in fact, like it's okay that you're still a little bit small. Like you don't have to break out right away.
I'm almost thinking the world would be very different from what we know. We would not have the system that we have. Our education maybe will just be a free form of education, life experience only, not books or mathematics. Maybe we will have a natural downloads from, I don't know, outer space. I mean, I could create this entire fantasy land if we were just to live our own gifts. But in reality, you're right. I also think that this is what makes us rebellious, because some of us dislike the way that we're told to do certain things.
Yeah.
Or certain way of living is just forced upon us. So how would we awaken? I just had the vision, really great vision. Imagine just like this cycle of souls just coming through the entire, entire wave of Earth experience and going through the same exact like bell curve.
Yeah, right.
And like as we move, as 10% of the top or the bottoms move to whatever, either mediocrity or like upfront, or as we kind of transcend to who knows whatever level of dimensions, and then another wave just comes in. It's like almost like you're in this school where you have to learn what the mediocrity really is, and any shadow.
Yeah, and that's a bit of like the irony of these shadow states is they're unnecessary. It's almost like it's tempting to like reject the shadow, like, oh, we don't need that anymore, be free. And it's like, well, we can't manifest these gifts unless we implement or integrate and become like really hyper aware of how the shadows exist, because without like, because consciousness is light, it naturally has shadow, right? And as you said, I think in one of our previous talks, we integrate and assimilate our shadow and manifest the gift, and then like the same shadow shows up in a different relationship or different circumstance, and there's another layer of learning that we go through. And possibly, maybe I'm thinking now, until we acquire a acidic state, which kind of leaves all that behind.
For some of us, but not all. The question is, does our current knowing that all of this massive consciousness is evolving and it's becoming better, bigger, or spaceless, or we're evolving somewhere going forward, does that mean all these shadows will by default fall off eventually for everybody?
Good question. Hard to say.
We might never know. All right, so the 8th gene key is the fear of success, and you compromise your dreams not because you fear you will fail, but because you know that to succeed you will have to rebel against the whole of society and its expectations of you. What would your advice be for people that have that little mini sparkle in them of the wild self that is tamed? What would it be?
Don't
you feel it too sometimes?
That's all I feel.
You're on auto on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there for sure. I'm trying to put myself back so I have some empathy. It's gonna feel like the hardest thing that you will ever have to do. And for me, one thing that's helpful is like fear setting. So what's the worst thing that can happen? And you play it out and you imagine, you allow like the feelings to come up, and you just take it to the extent of like, because often a great quote is, fear is often a mile wide, but an inch deep. I don't know if you've heard that one.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's just, we just have to step into the water and we find it's not very deep, but it's very vast, and it has, and we can fantasize about what's underneath, but it's just another path to walk. Just step So that fear setting exercise, which essentially is like, what's the worst that can happen? Play it out. The next thing, you often end up like, I've lost all my money, my relationships are dead, I'm at ground zero, nobody loves me anymore, and then what? And you're like, okay, then I would pick myself up, I'd figure something out, and I would make it happen. And often that's not what's going to happen when you take a step toward your dreams. But it's helpful for those people that are maybe frozen by fear.
You know what I noticed as I was listening to the previous and doing the cutting the shorts, I actually re-listened to first 3 keys in our entire thing, what we talked about. And for you, I've noticed that you always come to the same exact conclusion, which is this one. What is the worst that can happen? And why not just try it? And it's so cool because I'm noticing that this is how, when you speak your truth, this is what comes out. So it's really interesting. I'll actually send you a couple clips that I clipped out, and I was like, oh wow, this is you.
Yeah, that's cool. Yes, I never thought about that. Like, we have patterns for dealing with internal conflict. Does that bring up something for you that feels different?
You mean the pattern?
Yeah.
I just like to see it in you, and I think I don't think it's coincidental that I saw that in you, but I like to hear it because it's like it shows that you're walking your talk, or meaning like you're it's almost like it is so part of you that you don't even notice it any longer, which is also what happens when we get to the CD states as well. It's like it becomes so part of you that it's like you're not at all even conscious about it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out because it's like, damn, this is so Eric. It should be like my story will be, I'm not a guy, I don't know, 50 years from now who used to say this, and this is the lesson that I learned from him. What's the worst that can happen? True. All right, anyway. Okay. Do you have anything you want to point out on the shadow side?
Yeah, no assurances of success beyond your faith in your own deep and vibrant nature. So maybe there's the exercise of fear setting to deal with, like the negative emotion, and then to address the positive state. It's like really take some time to get to know, or remembering your own deepness and your own vibrancy and where that comes from and how that emanates, and then how you feel and how people respond to you, how your spouse might look at you or how your family members look at you when you're like, I have this dream and it's huge, I'm about it, and that can be very powerful. And then this might segue very well into like the reactive nature of the urge.
Can I just jump into before we start reactive nature? There's this feeling of, when we think, we are limited in the language that we're expressing our thoughts. Very, very limited. And if you know more than one language, often you will find the better expressions in non-English languages, right? So I can express myself much better on my native language than the English. But I think on English, and I also dream on English too. But I'm lacking the expressions. So if I want to say something that it's absolutely absurd and bizarre or crazy or non-common, I wouldn't be even able to do it with the language, which is, mind. And our brains are designed to, like a little story behind is like our brains are actually large organ compared to any other animals around us and mammals, and they're developed to for the language, right? So that we can socialize. So other mammals have smaller brain, but our capacity expanded, and with it, its organ expanded, so it gave us language. But when I'm trying to think, I cannot think in language. I can actually think the way I feel. That makes sense. So today I had a practice, and the practice was phenomenal. And I've never felt this way because I embodied this energy in my body, and I did this circular breathing, and I ended up going to the earth all the way through my spine, up there to the cosmos, back down front. And I just opened up this like circulation of the energy that it's unexplainable, but I know it's there. And I was very conscious and aware that it was happening in my body to a point where I'm like, ooh, something is like rising, going down, rising, going down. It's like it's about to explode. And if I just tap into it, I will allow this body just to move the way it wants to move. I cannot still explain it. So for people to exit the mediocrity, they have to be able to freely feel or freely think whatever that it's not given to them by default, by the mechanism of brain, by the mechanism of environment, or what they see here, and all the senses that they're using to, assume the reality. So I highlighted here, what is free thinker? It is someone who can see beyond the current structures imposed on life. It is a person who leaves the spontaneity of his or her own creativity. And free thinkers also live freely. And it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And it doesn't mean you just live freely on the street or, as a nomad or whatever form that you have. It's not even wrong if you do so either. But to express the free you is really, it's not the way you explain anything in life. It's almost the way you feel free to move. And friend of mine, really good friend in Brazil, is an artist. And she discovered the art side of her. And the way she creates art, Eric, is, when I see it, it's like, wow, she is literally in the mud, rolling her entire body on the canvas, going with the feet, and she's just embodying this energy, and energy just moves the body, and it's just boom, the art just gets created. It is her expression of the freedom that she tapped when she listened to her heart and her essence. It is beautiful to see it. Beautiful. It's like you become in awe. You just want to stand back and be like,
Yeah, that's exquisite, right? Exquisite.
yes.
I have a question for you. Is there a practice that you use or recommend for people in allowing the mind to just rest and not create a story around like a feeling or?
Yes. Ritual and create a space. Okay, so it's really good. It's a good question. And I didn't believe in rituals until I started doing them. And until I actually designed a space, an environment that turns on my body and nervous system to know that it's time to shut off and turn on. And when you enter and when you do, you set up entire structure for that ritual of yours, your mind by default knows what to do. And more you do it and more you practice, your mind just goes to sleep, goes on a break, and your body starts to feel. And it's this play where you constantly have to enter the body, but more you practice, it actually becomes part of you. So rituals and the space rituals specifically, where you really, where you tease all your senses, your eyes, your taste, your smell, your ears, right? So everything, your skin. And more and more you tease it, then you create this environment that your body actually knows how to feel very differently, and you're able to touch many different states of different consciousness. And I don't know what I'm touching. Today I had a bear behind me, a jaguar behind me, and a Kali. And then I had a goddess Shiva, or God Shiva and Shakti together. And I'm like, they just want to enter my body. And I'm like, let's go. And they just knew, because I knew I was safe, I was able to actually express and embody all these different forms of the energy that can show up and be predator, prey, aggressive, submissive, all these different things. But in reality, your reality is really none of it, other than your sense of the body and your energetic fields is what is playing the role in it.
And from a practical component, you're allowing your body to move, or is this more meditative where things are happening internally, or both?
Whatever your body wants to express.
Okay.
Today was the first time that I actually moved, and I stood the entire time. So while I was growing roots and meditation, I was also growing my branch, and tree was huge. So you connect with both things. But the moment we learn how to stop thinking about it, we allow the body. And we allow the body to express itself in the form of energy. You become spaghetti, your hands just move, your body just becomes sensual, aggressive, all different types of formats. Or you want to protect, you want to surrender, you want to defend, you want to fight, you want to go to war, you want to do all these different things. And they're not the things of what we think of it in mind. They're very different sensations in the body.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And then one more question for you. Is there a word in is it Serbian, or is it okay? Is there a word in Serbian that points to this feeling of fullness, or kind of like a comfort, fullness, like if you ate like a really big bowl of soup and you're at your mom's house, something like this. Is there like a word?
Yes. And the word is related to the fire.
Okay.
And the fire that imagine the tribes, and they would all gather around the fire outside. And they would do so often that it becomes who they are.
Yeah.
And the moment you see the fire, the moment you come closer to it and you smell the cracking wood or whatever that you're burning, you actually get this sensation of safety. So the fire, we don't do this back home, but there's something related to the fire because we grew up with the fire, that it's associated with that safety, fullness, free, loving, be who you are type of, that only family can give you. Only family.
Yeah.
Family. Or your caregiver or somebody that you grew up with, which is, like, no matter what, I will move the mountains for you. And I will never tell you this, but I will move the mountains and move to another planet if I have to. You're safe here. You're safe with me. So that's the fullness, how I see of it. It's like, it's almost like, but it's related to the fire.
What's
That's
the word?
interesting.
Could you say it for me?
Ogan.
Ogan.
Ogany.
Ogani.
Ogany. Yes, we have 32 letters in the alphabet. I think English has 28. If not. So ours, the ny. I don't know how. Yeah, it's not even
Yeah.
like, it's not. I can't even write it in English, in Latin.
Okay.
You can. It's N and J together, N and J together. But yeah.
Right. Okay. That feeling. There's something I tapped into, and this is a little rabbit trail, but it's coming up for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a feeling I think that underlies most shadows, or kind of comes in with them, which is, if it's the shadow, the universe doesn't actually have my back, like the deepest fear. And then on the side of the gift, the universe has my back. And today there was a feeling of this positive aspect, and you relate it to family, and it's like the universal mother, right? Like the Shakti would have your back, comfort you, and fullness and fire. And I felt that also in like lower chakra body, just this feeling of like fire and warmth, and it's great.
Yeah. So isn't it so interesting how when we're in a gift, we feel it so much in our bodies, and it just goes like, and it takes over.
Yeah.
You just know when gift grabs you.
Yeah.
It's so good. I often have to take a shit when I am not joking. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to go. And I don't know why. It's just like I see it, I feel it coming, and it's like it changes my entire metabolism. It's crazy.
Yeah, thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I also wrote down, the only concern with those that have manifested the gift of style is to free more free thinkers. And when you were speaking about the shadow, like you're like, I'm so frustrated and I just want to wake everyone up and show them, but I can't. So it's like, this is again like solidifies the feeling that style equals Milica.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about the style. And I think, I'm sure you had a lot of mentors that you followed. But the real question is, did you ever meet a mentor who didn't want you to follow them?
Not in person, but Osho does a wonderful job of this. He actually has a talk on YouTube, and it's titled "My Whole Reason is to Confuse You," or "My Whole Purpose." Like he's like, Yeah, I'm not for you. I do have a close friend, and she's a very well, what's it called? There's a term for like the deep followers of Osho and his teaching, and he definitely emanates and reminds me frequently, like, no, I don't have it, and no, I don't want you to follow me, and no, don't do what I did. She'll give recommendations like teaching, but it's interesting, like the rebelliousness that's so deep that when you're following rebelliousness, it's like, I have a leader, I have someone I can attach to. But if they're truly rebellious, they're going to deny you, and then they let you just sit in your aloneness, and it's like the most like discombobulating thing. It just puts you in a tornado because you think you found like the thing or the answer or the person, and then when they send you into that and you find your way through again, it's like, okay, I see why you did that. I mean, it's like deep gratitude, and it makes you more apt to then lean into their message even further.
Yeah, right. To lean into their message and then follow.
Yeah. Well, that's how the shadows and fears play out, right? Unless you fully transmuted them or alchemized them, because you'll keep reattaching. You'll just do it over and over again. We do this in relationships with codependency, right? The same thing. Like, sure, you can have space, and then I find myself like stuck on you like glue again. Oh, sorry, let me back off.
So in its way, it's the trap too.
Yeah.
Do you think there's so you strike me as someone who has a lot to say, right? When somebody has a lot to say, aren't they rebellious by default? To use your mouth because it's given to you, and you say something, you have a stand on something.
Yeah.
You stand for something. You have statements. And if you have something to say, then you lead somehow one or the other way. So whenever we talk about the gurus or somebody who is so expressive through the words rather than just sitting as enlightened being and in a jungle and people just coming in and he's not saying anything. So you can either be that, or it can be someone who travels the world and speaks and talks about his enlightened states and experiences. Do you think there is a difference between when someone, you or me or someone, talks to the other wanting attachment and when they talk wanting nothing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel the difference or you hear the difference?
It's for sure more of a feeling. I think the feeling is intuitive. I'm sure you could, like take notes on the person that makes you feel this way and the person that makes you feel this way, and like write down like they approach it in these two ways, and then you could like figure out like what to listen for. But usually it's just like the word that comes up for me is like unsettling. Yeah. Disrupting. Usually it's a good one.
So when you have something to share, do you find yourself battling in between?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, you just pinpointed something for me. Like, that feels heavy. I'm not sure why.
Want to share or want to
Yeah,
contemplate?
there's a fear, of course, in if I spoke if I spoke from rebelliousness or not wanting to connect, then no one would want me. It's just like this shadow over here that's like, wait, come back. And then there's also like the part of me that's like, well, you're just being obnoxious. Just calm. um,
Mm.
you know, and then there's like, is it? I find it useful to have like gentle. I think most people would respond better to gentle approaches to unsettling their status quo, I guess you could say.
Mm.
Versus like a very abrupt in your face. The first thing I say to you, the only thing I say to you is, you know, go fuck yourself, whatever it is. I'm curious where you're going to go with this. And I'm also thinking of like the person that's living on the street, and I'm sure you see this a lot in California, and they're like, I'm going to preach. I've received a download. Everyone must hear it, and I don't care who it upsets. I don't care if I don't make any money. I don't care if I have food. And they just are shouting at the top of their lungs, and it's like it's easy to tune that out. And that's kind of where I'm like easing in, and there's so many. That's why I'm saying it's deep. There's so many layers. Like, am I just playing small? Yeah.
So how I think of it is that it's not it's not what you're preaching. It's really the question of why. Do you want them to follow you? And okay, let me speak about me. Do I want them to follow me? Or am I gifting this to you to do whatever that you want, no strings attached?
Yeah.
And I find myself in between, like not a lot, but yes, you're right. California and LA in general, they're very rebellious, and people will come up with random stuff to do, and there's a massive following, and it's always kind of starts here for some reason, whatever that is trending. And it gets adopted really fast by masses, really, really fast. So your idea can be adopted and you by default get followers. But the question is, do you want the followers or do you want just your own experience to be shared when you feel a need to share it? If I live 24/7, which I do, so everyone's cycle is 48 hours, out of which, whatever, 8 hours I sleep, 8 hours I work, and 8 hours I think freely. There is no need for me to express myself for 48 hours every single day. But there is a need for me to say something sometimes. And I see it and feel it when there is a need to speak.
Yeah.
It's almost like I almost say, this information is not mine.
Yeah.
I don't have any attachment to it. So when we express ourselves online or write a story about it, usually I download a lot of stories. Like it's almost like, whew, this just came out of blue. The way I speak, how I elaborate, vocabulary I'm using, totally not mine. And I'm like, this is not mine. I'm detached. And for it, I'm just a vehicle that passes it through. And you can do whatever you want, no strings attached. You can use it, abuse it, disregard it, hear it, not hear it. It doesn't matter. That's how that's the difference between how I understand where you are doing something for a creative self for some sort of return from them, rather than when you're creating something and you're just expressive and that's it. You either share it or you don't share it, but you don't want any attachments. I almost don't want anybody to say what I have to say. I don't. So my stories are not stories for you to repeat, or right. So this is why I like when you and I created this series. It came out of blue. Became when the time was right for it, and not any second of it, Eric, did not feel like I have to do this.
Right.
And we've been doing this since December. It is April now, almost end of March.
Yeah.
And the way we do it, there's no plan and there's no goal in it. And in the last 2 days, you and I just put massive amount of work out there. And I was like, how did this happen? Right. So it is, I almost feel like this is not our information at all whatsoever. Once we are done through 64 keys, our chapter and our work is going to be done. We move on to something else.
Yeah.
And we don't need anything from it. It's just the information shared, and somebody somewhere there, maybe 10 years from now, will find some sense of it, or whatever piece of it that will trigger something in them. And that's our job. So I love the gift of style, because we are slowly, you and I together in this, are actually building the style that I don't see that other people do what you and I do. We do pro bono, gladly. And it's not even, it's like our lives. I think this is healing for our ourselves. Like, we heal through the contemplations of it, because there's a lot of it that triggers as we talk, and one after another just comes in, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, like we're coming to the realization. This is just an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful.
That's my way of saying thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is really great. It's interesting because you framed the question around how do you approach, and naturally the word "you" implies ego. And if this is interesting, because if you had asked me, how does the ego play a role in communicating a message? I would have responded completely differently, because I know what to say about ego. It's like, I would never give a platform to my ego. But when you're asking on such a personal level, and it's natural, and I think this is something that's really useful about these conversations, and about how they're not structured beyond just we're working through them, is I often will go on this tangent, and then I'll hear you speak for a minute, and then I'll look back at what I just said and be like, oh, yeah, I get to see my shadow play it out right in front of me as we're talking about it, as we're working.
But when I re-listen to what you have to say, I'm like, oh, I actually missed that part. Because I could easily just grab the second of your expression of it and be like, oh, this makes sense what you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're pointing to the, Indra's net, like the dew on a spider web, and the dewdrops all reflect every other dewdrop. And it's like, so we're all kind of manifesting different visions of this existence and this reality, and our own perception is part of this net. And when we communicate and we share this with the world, what we think people are going to get out of it, it's not what they're going to get out. And that's the beauty in sharing a message that's not from the platform of needing something or desiring connection or followers or that.
100%. 100%. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because it's like, wow. And it's just an example. It is not anyone to follow the book. It's not the book. It's just the example, and the the simple example of our process of healing.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we touch the style? Yes, we did.
I just want to touch one more thing there. When you manifest style, you're able to make things happen. And then when you look back at the world, it seems like everyone's stuck inside of a dream world. And it also, for me, came up that if I participated too much in the dream world, that it loops me back in, and I lose not necessarily the sense of style, but like the vision that's driving me forward.
Hmm.
It's like the sadness and the depression and the fear. You know, Richard talks about how we are open channels to energies of the collective, and there's so much energy that's being communicated to try to get people to stay in this dream world. And as I feel it coming in, if I'm here in Hawaii, for the most part, it doesn't bother me. But even just a slight participation in like talking with people that are still in that world, and maybe there's some like self-centered intention behind it, and that's why I'm getting trapped. But despite that, just participating in conversations with people that are not aware of what's happening and how they're being affected, I can feel myself like this weight just pulling me down.
Hmm.
Um,
How come?
I think, and this has been something over the last 2 months that has been tremendously healing, is I haven't allowed myself to feel it. So I had a friend, we have, friends that channel and do all sorts of rebellious stuff out here in Hawaii. And a friend came over and her partner, and they were like, you guys should look into Pleiadian, just look into it. We're like, oh, how come? We were like, well, you just have some Pleiadian energy, and maybe that's part of your past. And then the next day I like got sick. I had this high fever, and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck in bed, feeling sorry for myself. Have some mushrooms. I'll just take some mushrooms. So I had the fever and the mushrooms working together, and it enabled me to like, for once in my life, just let go of this like control and this like I got it figured out, I'm gonna plan it, and just like feel it. And it was like the most disgusting, beautiful picture. Like I had to change the pillowcase that I was laying on because of just all of the mess. And a big part of that was like just the manifestation of this life. I never allowed myself to feel the pain of separation and just what that is. Because if we truly came from this place, or we're meant to go to a place, or maybe both are true, where we're right now in this testing phase, or who knows exactly what's going on. But I can feel a certain sense of like we are meant to be just like unified on such a level that goes beyond comprehension. We're not thinking about how am I gonna meet up with Milica and have a conversation and get and connect with her and get to know her, and then we have to bridge through language, which is so limiting, and all of these things that just further separate. And I just gave myself space to feel like what it means to be a human being on this planet, feeling the separation, the lack, the fear of the universe not actually having my back. I just felt all of it. And it's like, is that Jinky 1 or 2 where you were like, Eric, you just gotta feel it, and I'm like, oh yeah, gotta feel it. And I gave myself permission to, and
What happened?
it was, it was just like, you're in depression, be depressed. Don't be depressed about depression. It's like, for once I was just like, I'm just gonna be in this, whatever it is. And I got to know a part of myself that was kind of foreign to me before, and also learn like the power of embodying something. like there's so much power in it, and just like it can move through you much quicker if you don't try to trap it or block it or move it aside.
So how did that tie back to the Pleiadian?
So that I was like, okay, I still have this, like, maybe some of the stuff is woo woo, you know, like there's, you know, we have parts of ourselves. There's a part of me that's like, sure, I came from another planet and chose this existence, and I'm special and I'm different. I'm not like all the other humans.
Ah,
And then there's a part of me like, that's just woo woo. It's meant to like give you an escape, like a fantasy, so you don't have to actually like learn. So I just, in that moment, I'm like, let's just play it. Let's just like allow that part to fully, like, I just went into the part and fully gave it space to be, and like, okay, I was Palladian. I chose this life, and then it just like washed over me, like, what the fuck is this? Like, just feeling like I came from a place where, you know, like maybe telepathy was a thing, and you know, like the gift of sharing was just innate, and like the shadows were just tiny comparatively to how they exist on Earth, and then just thinking about this existence, and it's like, oh man. So my life's work fear is 55, and the shadow is victimization, and the gift is freedom. And there's a temptation to say like, okay, I choose freedom and move on. But there's, just like with all these shadows, I have to feel like I'm a victim. Like I have to like just like, to what capacity, to what extent, what breadth does this exist in me? So
I
I just
see.
allowed it,
I see. I see.
and it was ugly, but in allowing it, it's like, oh, you know, here I am now, and it kind of removes that potential escape, that I am special, or I am unique, and that like my life path is different. I don't have to do this, and someone will come along and like pull me out, or like, yeah, yeah,
So when the fears like this come, or shadows, and they grab us, and they can come in different forms, something triggers them, or they just pass through town, and it's a different music. Circus, I see it as the circus passing through the village I live in, and I really want a freaking sugar candy because I really want it, right? And they give me a different color that I've never tried before, and it's the information that now I really get like curious about, right? Because it's new, it's novelty. For someone to tell me that, how I understood it, to tie back to your Pleiadian story, for someone to tell me that I'm special, which by the way, I had sages tell me the same thing,
yeah,
and read my Akashic records and tell me that I just came here as a freaking light.
yeah.
And I remember feeling, oh, I am special. And for the matter of fact, I was told that I descend into this life, and that I'm such a bright light. Then she goes, if somebody fucking can't see you or look at you, have them put the freaking sunglasses on. And when she said that, I was like, yeah, I'm a badass.
Yeah, yeah,
So shadow. And I'm better than anybody else. By default, when we're given such a borderline outrageous way of thinking, is like it's so easy to get attached to it. But the moment we take that form, and this is where someone tells us something, rather than if I compliment you, I will not tell you you're a walking sage here, and I think you're next, I don't know, like freaking leader, right? So I would try my best not to tell you rather than I feel your energy. That's all.
Yeah.
But if I feel your energy, you and I are connected to a completely different level of understanding. And that's more than enough. Rather than, yeah, I can tell you, I can compliment you, I can compliment your wisdom, and I can learn from you. But oftentimes, if we tap into the shadow of, oh, I'm badass, and to me, this is often happening in relationships, is I need this way of affirmations or support system that I think it's support that lifts me up. Instead, really, it's me just getting attached to someone else, believing in me rather than me believing in myself, and seeing myself as universal being. Whatever planet that you come from, it can be Atlantean, Lemurian, Pleiadian, name the dimension, name it. Does it really matter? No. She said I'm light. It lasted a week. After that, I'm like, what the fuck was she talking about? Right? At the end of the day, this is what I feel now, and this is all I know.
Yeah.
But it's so cool because I often I'm noticing how when somebody puts us on the throne, we feel so good. Trap for shadow.
Yeah. Attachment.
Trap for shadow. Nobody's there to tell you that you are on a throne. You should be on your own throne anyway.
Yeah.
How do we just sit on our own throne and put our crowns on? I see your crown. But, your throne, my throne, I don't know whose is taller. Does it matter? No. Trap for shadow.
Yeah. And yeah, in a way that those things feel like tests. And I'm grateful for that friend because I got to experience, like, do I want to ride this high? Like the greatest test for a human is probably like, being called like a saint or a Christ figure or like the savior of the world or king or whatever. And because it's power, it's like power, eternal power, right? But the only true power in the universe is the power of the one, like the power of the life force that emanates beneath everything. And I think of the Tao Te Ching when it says, this is one of my favorite quotes ever from it, is the rivers run to the ocean because they place themselves beneath. And
yeah. Wow.
In a way, like the throne hopefully is somewhere beneath it all. Something to ponder.
So rather than someone telling us, because I thought we're badass for having 55th Jinky. Seriously. Admittedly, I thought we're a badass, but reading every single key, everybody's badass. It makes no difference that we have 55 and 22 and 38. It's like every single key is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like everybody is genius. Yeah. And so I connect this, I know we kind of dived into the eighth so much, but I have to say this. There's a reason, for whatever reason, that it's pushing me in having an urge to say it. The versatility. I connect this with someone else telling what we need to do. We have it in propaganda, TV, books, even books, or any book that connects you to another book or TV show or Gaia documentary, or you name it. When someone, or something gives us the direction that we must, without the words, but yet this is follow this way of thinking. Stick to the structure is an example that follows me a lot. It's like, I don't have a structure. Naturally, I'm an unstructured person. Complete chaos. It makes so much sense to me. But it makes sense to me because out of this chaos today, I don't feel like doing jinkies. Simple. Well, just an example. And, like I said earlier, never did I ever felt this with contemplating this work with you, which is really bizarre to me. Usually I don't stick with things. But the reason why I don't stick with things, because even I'm told to do them without following what I want to do today, which I'm realizing in the last year, actually, I'm realizing that my time is my free way of expression. And if I have a time on my plate, I get to create my own lunch and dinner and everything else. So today I feel like music. Yesterday I felt like book. The day after I felt like art. The day before I felt like studying, actively studying, learning finance, learning history, learning, binging on Anthony Bourdain's shows and figuring out how is he writing the story. Not about the show, it's about his way of expression through the words. And I'm like, but the way I'm expressing my days and using my time is through the expression led by really what I want to do today, rather than what I'm supposed to do. And what I'm supposed to do is really go to work and make the living, cook and clean and all these different things and chores in life and really organize, pay bills and all these different things. So that way is the structure way, and save money for retirement. Like, it's like almost what you're told to do. Or I find it, I digress a lot, but I find it interesting that when I'm given a book to read by someone, I read random books, I really do. But when I'm given the book by someone who tells me, you must read this, I so suffer through the book, I cannot even tell you.
Yeah.
Rather than reading and being like, oh, there's a word I'm interested in. Let me see what the synonym of this word is. And let me see if this word really triggers something in me that I want to buy a book about it. Literally, this is how I dived into any type of studies. But every single freaking book, including Dalai Lama book, who I was told I must read, I bought, that I read, and I hated it because I suffered so much through it. I couldn't even finish. It was such a hard way to do it. And this is where information is given to you as you must, rather than let me think how I feel now and what I feel I need to do as a way of expression.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're on the fringes of talking about education. And I don't know, I'm trying to remember if this was part of 9.
It was 8.
8. So I'll touch on it here.
Yeah.
Carly and I have, what was that?
8.
Carly and I have, over the last week, we decided to pull our kids out of full-time school into part-time. And we've been, she had this like channeled message, like, you're going to start school. And she was like, and she's very career oriented. She's like, pioneer woman. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start a business. I don't like to be told what to do. So for her to get that message she's like, oh, she didn't want to share it with me, but she did. And over the last week, I've been contemplating it. I'm like, maybe one of the messages I got was like, what's meant for you won't seem, it'll be rebellious in a way of like, you're doing what now? Like, and like allowing myself the chance to just explore what that means. And it's so interesting how passionate I've been about the way I want to raise my kids and the experiences I want them to have. And we've done so much of that already. But the next level is, now that our oldest is about to turn 5, is, okay, let's start some kind of school. And I've been sharing it with almost everyone in our like friend circle here. And everyone's like, yeah, let me know. Like, that would be great. And they're contributing their ideas too. And it's just like this, I can feel much like, if you have a tarp with water on it and you push down on the tarp, like all the water runs into the middle. Like, it feels just like that. Like, we're just giving weight to the idea. And it's just, and in that, one of the biggest things is like the Rudolf Steiner system, or the Waldorf, and it's similar to Montessori, which is you have stations set up, or you just have a full library, or just opportunity. And as the kids show up that day, you say, Jace, what would you like to do today? Would you like to build? Would you like to research a topic that you might be interested? Would you like to do gymnastics over here? Would you like to climb the rock wall? And that to me is like, this is a new education system. This is something that will help the next generation to be pioneers that will change the world. And just that level of freedom, like, it's interesting to me. Having 55, I'm like, okay, freedom for me means I can do whatever the fuck I want every single day. And then now I'm realizing if I can engender freedom for others and spread that and allow others to be more free, that feels so free to me. And it feels like the world is now like making sense. Whereas before, it's like, I'm going to be free as an act of solo rebellion, kind of like in a way to like make myself feel better, like to placate or to like numb for a day. But this, like having something that's tied in with a vision that matches where we're headed anyway. Oh man.
It's liberating.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I think that's great. When you said it, it was just like, of course.
Yeah.
It was just so, it felt so, of course. Meaning, that's right.
Naturally. Yeah.
Yes.
As nature intended.
And my nephew is 14 or 15 or 16. I can't remember. Getting old here. No, please. Can't remember his birthday, But both of them are actually high school or closer to the high school, and they hate schooling. They hate the system. And it's like almost like the generation that is coming up and rising to be by default rebellious with no extra curriculums of life or experiences in life, or I don't know, change the culture, read different books, learn another language, nothing of that extent. They come forward in 14 and 16 already being rebellious. I hate it due to informational age, of course. But I like how Richard touches on that specifically because this is the system that you have to follow, unfortunately. So my advice to my nephew has been ever since he was little is like, listen, you have ability to split yourself in two.
Yeah.
Not to give 100% to the system of yourself to the system, but you're kind of transiting into the era where we have a system that we have to obey to, but we also have the rebellious side that it's rising. You have to do both, and you have capacity to do both and to, do the education that it's asked from you, because now you have to go to school, you have to rock the credits and points for your school, the higher education and college, and who knows, maybe later that will determine your life, unfortunately, but it's true. And on the other side, you get to read different books and learn your own language, even though the system doesn't offer this for you. Why not? And build two cities at the same time. This is the capacity where I believe it's like we all have capacity to live 3, 5, 15 different lives at the same time. We can do it. Yeah. We're just taught not to. So I think you and Carly, I love the idea. But can I be the honorary guest?
Oh, could you come be a teacher?
I'd love to.
Live in community with us. It'd be great.
I can teach kids how to embody this, like,
oh, yeah.
The energy, or I don't know, let's go to fight for what we want.
Breath work, meditation, anything.
Movement. I'd love to. I think that would be great. It's actually one of my deepest desires to go back to my school, my primary and secondary school where I grew up, and meet kids and first, give all my money that I have to buy them computers so they can actually get equipped in today's world, and second, just to meet them actually and talk to these little mini beings.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Damn, an hour and a half. Do you want to say anything else around exquisiteness?
I'll be so brief. Just to touch on that, that was my experience in high school. I hated it, and I chose. I'm like, okay, well, I'll come home and I'll research what I want, learn about it. still in that though, it felt very limiting because you still have, it's the majority of the day, you know, you're 8 hours in something that resembles a prison in a lot of ways. And my school, the most out of curriculum thing you could choose was band or art. And so I took 4 years of art. And, you know, there
Oh,
was schools down the road that had, you know, you could do like video editing or I'm just like great. I'm just like, just give me something new to try, just anything. So I have a lot of empathy for your nephew and for all the kids that are feeling that because it's a to me it's a broken system. It's not meant to. There's not a whole lot of education that's actually happening, and there are like lights in the darkness, like these teachers that have come from, you know, like if I were to become a teacher and I'm like, hey, I hated school and we're gonna learn something, we're gonna learn it in a new way and learn it differently. It's like that helps, but it just to me like the system needs to be redone completely.
mm. I hated school too. I did it for my mom because she set on my head to do it. Finish, 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 finish. Thank God I finished it. Thankful because I am here right now doing and living the life that I'm living because of it. So, but only when I left the educational books and the literature I was forced to learn from, and I was able to actually be exposed to a completely different literature globally, is where I actually expanded my capacity. And I believe today's kids and your kids have, if not double, much more capacity to literally absorb much more than what we had, you and I together in the school. So I think they can do much more than we did in general. They can maybe embody three different types of worlds at the same time.
Yeah.
You and I are only talking about duality.
Right.
Here
Yeah.
they would come and say quadruality or whatever. They're powerful.
And this is somewhat random, but I've been watching a show called Shogun recently on Hulu, and it's about Japanese Ronin culture, like mid 16th century or whatever. And one of the characters talks about a 9-layer gate that's over their heart because there's this Western guy that comes into Japan and he's trying to integrate, and he's like, "Why don't you stand up for yourself and speak up and be your own person?" And they're like, they find the unity of their people to be more meaningful than the freedom of the individual. And this is true when we visited Korea, like that culture has still permeated the East of like the feeling of you're not one yourself, you're one with your people or with your country. Um, that kind of
Mm.
came up when you're talking about like two cities, or I'm like, oh yeah, it's like layers where you kind of built different protections. But yeah, we should move on. We could talk all day.
Okay.
Exquisiteness.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a note here that it's at, I wrote in love by just reading this, and I highlighted one sentence. So exquisiteness is experienced when the divine essence begins to shine through the individual. In this superlative state of bliss, you fall in love with your own pristine manifestation because it is through this uniqueness that the divine current can be assessed. I read it and I was like orgasmic with it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, this is so attractive to me. It's like attractive on another level of, I can feel it down my spine going and be like, oh, right? So this uniqueness and this divine essence, your bone marrow of who you truly are, will come through your eyes, your words, your skin, your radiance, your aura, your energy, your everything. It's your color. It's your color that you radiate, and you just put out there for the world to fall in love with you. And it only happens when you touch it so deeply. And I don't know, have I ever experienced this, to be honest, but the sense that I'm getting by just reading this is experience itself.
Yeah.
I'm in freaking love with it. If I ever met a being who can do this, I think I would like absolutely just like become transparent. I will get lost gladly.
Yeah.
Become one in its space. It's beautiful.
It's pointing to the unity consciousness, and it feels like the way he framed the sentence or whatever channeled in through him and he wrote it down. It feels like a massage of conscious awareness. Like it's like, you know what I mean? It's like
yeah, that bliss feeling.
Yeah.
You see, damn language, we can't express it, but you can feel it. Like you can dance with it. It's like it moves. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
This is a pattern. Every time we get to the city, we kind of fumble a little bit, and then we both look at each other and
because it's
and it feels like when if people don't have a taste for what channeled messages kind of elicit or bring up, read the cities of the gene keys and you'll be like, I don't, like, how could that have come from a human mind or a single aspect of consciousness? It's so much more than that.
Have you noticed because I've noticed it with me, when I read CDs, my cheeks are hurting from smiling. When I read shadow, I'm always like, damn. When I'm in a gift, I'm like, oh, I see, I can see it, right? But when I read CDs, it's almost like I'm freaking smile itself. Every CD so far, because it gives you this like lift that it's unexplainable.
Yeah, I resonate with that for sure.